Thank you for inviting me to this important innovation event. It's, for me a really opportunity to present you with this new European program, which is really dedicated to innovation. So, in my presentation, I will show you how this program is responding to the economic crisis, and in particular to growth and job. I will also show you how it addresses the people concerned regarding the livelihood, safety, environment, and I will show you how it intends to strengthen the EU global position in research and innovation. A key political message of our Commission here So, it's slightly, I think, very sensitive. So, I'm sorry. So one of the key important messages of our Commission here is that this new program is really part of the drive to create new jobs and growth in Europe. As we all know, the economic recovery in Europe requires fiscal consolidation and structural reforms. However, it will not be sufficient to boost Europe's competitiveness. As it is shown on this graph, you will see that sustained investment in research and innovation is part of the key engines for economic growth. And the rule seems to be that the higher research and development intensity you had in the past, the faster economic growth you will have now. So to understand, how this major investment program will work, you need to know what, European 2020 is. In fact, it's the EU policy strategy for growth for the next decade. And part of this policy is, of course, investing in research, education, and innovation is a key part of achieving smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. And it's also absolutely needed in order to meet our commitment in Europe to that at least 3% of our gross domestic product is invested in research and innovation. So what is also behind Horizon 2020 is Innovation Union, which is one of the 7 flagship initiatives of Europe 2020. In fact, it comprises 34 concrete commitments to create, the best condition for Europe researchers and innovators to innovate in Europe. In these slides, you can see, 3 main actions, which relates one to the intellectual property rights, and which is linked to the development, of a knowledge market on patent and licensing, especially around what we call the community patent. We will have also important action to modernize, EU public procurement, and also key action in the sector of venture capital, which aim, to make more competition, more funds available, and in particular, in order to allow greater access to small and medium enterprise to equity funds. So it's very important, to place Horizon 2020 in this political concept. And this is a major investment program, as you can see. 79 billion euro will be spent on research and innovation for the next period of 7 years. So it's important to mention that it's one of the very rare programs in Europe which will see an increase in its budget compared to the past, so 27% increase. And I think it's a recognition of our member states that this program has a great potential to boost, growth, competitiveness, and innovation in Europe. Yes, Horizon will be very different. It is a concept developed around a set of new instruments where you will be able to couple research and innovation, and it will be really challenge-based and also a very simpler program compared to the past. So the real idea is to have as many as possible ideas from labs which go to the market. So its structure is, I would say, a balanced approach between science, industry, and benefit to society. Now let's go into the details of each of these pillars. So the first one is, of course, to support the excellence basis in Europe, which is, I would say, a bedrock, and which will certainly, for Horizon 2020, will continue to be a leitmotif. And even if you really target, more technology transfer, application to the market, there is no compromise on excellence. So in this program, you will recognize what we call European Research Council, which is a pan-European funding body which is supporting the best frontier research in Europe. It is very well known. It has been developed in the previous program, and it is now going to be substantially funding because it's almost a double of its budget. So essentially in this program you have, I would say, individual grants. So it starts from early career researcher to more mature and of course to top researcher. We are well known. And just to illustrate its prestigious, I think we got project which then we were, for Nobel Prize. I think we had at least 8 projects which have been received by people who are now Nobel Prizes, and also I think 3 from the La Médaille field. Another very popular program, which also is going to be, of course, continuous for the youth, which is to promote, of course, scientific career and also mobility. So here again, it's essentially fellowships. So you will have a lot of doctoral training and a lot of mobility fellowship, which will be provided for our researcher to go all over Europe and even, outside Europe, and also having, this cross-exchange between academy and private and industry. Another important program is what we call emerging and future technology, which I would say is a collaborative research which support non-conventional and pioneers ideas which have great potential for future technology. Then you have, of course, the infrastructure, because many, I would say, large-scale research infrastructure are only possible at European level. Okay, so now I think we will jump to the second important part of this program, which is really the one where industry is in the lead. Of course, we cannot pretend, to accelerate the product and, the services in the market, if we are not making partnership with industry. So in this section, it will be essential, of course, that private and public will work together. So the important part, more than 13 billion euro, will be dedicated to what we call the key enabling technology, which means the ones which have great potential for future technology in the short and medium term. So it relates to nanotechnology, biotechnology, advanced materials, advanced processing, information and communication technology, and also space technology. Then we have an important component in this section, which is dedicated to the access to risk finance. As you know, this is a strong barrier for innovative companies to get access to finance, and especially to small and medium enterprise. So we will have specific action, so more than 2.8 billion euro, and it will be implemented through the European Investment Bank as well as European investment funds. So this type of support has started in the current program, but will be fostered and further developed in Horizon. A key partner of this program will be the small and medium enterprise. A lot of things will change to facilitate their access, to the funding in this program. They will have a single entry point, and they will have dedicated instrument where there will be the sole eligible applicants. And just to show you that, it's going to be really concrete, is that at least 20% of all the funds that will be dedicated to the enabling technology, and we will see later the societal challenge, or 20% of these funds will have to go to SME. So this is more than the current program, where this number is 15%. So now let's jump to the last pillar, which is really addressing, people concerned, and is really what we call challenge-based. So the first program which will receive, substantial funding, more than 7 billion euro, is of course health. So it's a various, of course, area of support. It's, it can be, project on the causes of health and diseases. It will be about personalized medicines. It will be about clinical trials for new therapies. It will be, of course, around all the major diseases, could be anti-infectious, cancer, and all kind of other things. So another very important program is, what we call to make the best use of our biological resources. So it's really from land to aquatic, and it's what we could call the bioeconomy. So the accent in this program will be really put on, I would say, sustainable technology, and also some technologies that are expected to decrease our dependency about non-renewable resources. A key program will also be, of course, around energy. As you know, energy is the most prominent emitter of greenhouse gases in Europe, and also 2% of the European Union gross domestic product is spent every year to import energy. So it seems that it's increasing almost every year, and if we continue in these trends, we could have a total dependency on energy by years 2050. So it's absolutely needed to develop, new technology which are low, of course, carbon, and which are cost effective. In Europe, it's called, the policy around energy is called the Strategic Energy Technology Plans. You might have heard about that. So it's really a set of plenty of emerging technology which have to confirm, I think, their cost effectiveness. Now we switch to transport, which also I would say has some similarity in the sense that at least in Europe, 25% of our CO2 emissions are linked to transport, and today, of course, our transport system are too much linked, I would say, to oil. So the idea is, of course, to continue to promote mobility, but for sure to try to develop cleaner technology and more sustainable one. And this program, I would say, targets both air, car, and car transport and air transport. Another sector which is also important today for our citizens relates to the environment, all the issue of climate change. So in the environment, I think importance will be given to the treatment of wastes and water, because there are some business potential in Europe in this sector. And also attention will be put on the supply of raw material, which, as you know, for Europe is absolutely essential and strategic. Now we switch to something which is less scientific, which is socio-economic science, which is absolutely indispensable when we face a transformation in the society, and of course to better understand all these economic problems and the societal challenge. So this is why, the social science and humanity will be embedded throughout Horizon 2020. Another program has gained some reinforcement, I would say, in the current program, which is linked to security. Why? I think essentially is to support the competitiveness of our European security industry, and it's also to address, our citizen concern about cybersecurity and also, I would say, natural disaster or man-made disaster to protect the society. So, last but not least, I want also, of course, to show that we are continue to support nuclear research. So the funding is more than 9 million euro, but it's just for 5 years in this case, which is a peculiarity, I would say, of the Euratom Treaty, which only allow us to have program for 5 years. So in this case, the accent will be for the nuclear fission on security and also on radiation protection, And for the fusion research is essentially to accompany the construction of ITER, you may know that this construction is taking place in the south of France, in Cadarache, and we all expect, that this very sustainable energy is going to be able to be reproduced at large scales, and of course with economic viability. And don't forget that this nuclear energy is really part of our decarbonization aim in this energy strategy. So now let's go to the cross-cutting aspect of this program. The international cooperation, I think it's important to mention that this European program is the most open funding program in the world. It was the case in the past, it will continue to be the case, although it is certainly a project will be more, I would say, for mutual benefit. Another sector is what we call the widening the participation in this program. So in this section, excellence will continue to be the leitmotif, and a set of instruments have been developed, such as for example, if you are in a, I would say, a less developed research region in Europe, but you have the potential to develop an excellent sector, you will be able to benefit from this instrument where you can get some network or even, real cooperation with excellent teams which are recognized as leaders in this field. Another important cross-cutting is, of course, the science with and for society. Europe has always been very supportive of, having a clear discussion between society and science. I think it's absolutely key that the society is supportive about research, is supportive about science, and also understands its development, is also may be brought at the very early stage in the development of the new technology. Remember that we faced in Europe, I think, a real problem with organisms genetically modified. I'm pretty sure that if we would have done, the exercise of asking the society in advance if it would buy, this kind of technology, we might have decided a different type of investment for Europe. Another important structure is called European Institute of Innovation and Technology. I think the best way to describe it is that they call it the triangle of knowledge. In fact, it's really a partnership between research, education, and innovation. And they are built around what we call the KIC. It's knowledge innovative communities. And the main purpose of that is really to train new entrepreneurs and to favor the creation of startup and spin-off. So now, I told you that one of the key assets of this program is that it has to be simpler, of course, to allow this innovation to take shape. So participation will be made easier. You will have easier access, so we will have what we call a participant portal, which will be unique. So it will gather, in a single entry point, all the information you need. It will be easier application in the type of funding. For example, it will be very simple. You will have two possible projects. Either it will be research and innovation, and it will be funded at the level of 100%. Whoever you are, it means if you are university, research institution, industry, SME. So it's a big novelty because in the previous framework program, the funding rates was fully dependent on your entity. And the other funding rate is 70% when you are very close to the market. And also this is very new because in the past, European programs were only financing among 40% and in the previous 50% when the projects were closer to the market. So this time we have been able to negotiate with the state aid to have until 70% of funding, which I think it's a great asset. Sorry. So also something very important. So innovation you cannot wait for innovation. So we made a lot of effort to shorter time to grant, which means that now between, the end of the deadline for application and the signature of the contract, the maximum duration will be 8 months. If you see that in comparison of all the international, funding agency, is really, really challenging. And even for very specific instruments, like we have fast track to innovation, it will be less than 6 months. Of course, this will be also accompanied by quicker payment. And I think it's enough, but also something to mention for the one who are used to European program. A big change will be that what you will propose in the application will be what you will get in the project. We will not have the time anymore, to negotiate, and of course, because the negotiation increase the time before money is available with the applicants. You will have also fewer audits, so it will be a more, I would say, balance between trust and control. Yes, now partnership. I think partnership in Horizon 2020 will be reinforced. So it starts with, I would say, closer synergy between regional and national program to coordinate, but it will go a step further, in particular by promoting, the very large partnership between public and private or public-public. And as an illustration, we tabled to the Council in July an investment of 22 billion for 10 very large partnerships. So we have 6 with private, which relates to pharmaceutical, aeronautic, new energy technology, bio-based industry, and nanoelectronics. And we have 6 other which relate really to public-public partnership in sector where, you need public support, like a clinical trial in developing countries, and also metrology, for example, and something which is to ease the possibility for elderly and disabled to stay at home by developing very innovative instrumentation. And what is interesting, it's in Horizon 2020, we are taking very much care about what we call additional investment. And in this case, the package is 22 billion euro, but Horizon 2020 is only putting on the table 8 million. 10 million will come from industry, and 4 million will come from the member states. So it's really, this kind of project where you pull together different sources of investment to go really a step further in the production of new products and services. So now the reality. So we expect to have the first call for proposal on the 11th of December. So yes, we have very positive message at the end. I hope you will have this feeling.